Okay. Yeah. All right. Here we go. Hey, Nick. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Coming in loud and clear. Good. All right. How you doing?
Good, man. How you doing?
I am bloated. I just had a bunch of Subway. Yeah, I had a teriyaki onion motherfuck, and now I am a little slower than I want to be.
You didn't go for their fake tuna?
No, somehow I was not tempted.
Yeah. Somehow something didn't appeal to you.
Yeah, something in the air. I don't know. But anyways, yeah, man, it's good to see you. I think, gosh, when was the last time we spoke? I think it was at one of the aesthetic mics. I think.
Yeah, I believe. Yeah, one of the mics or one of the early shows, I think was the last time.
I think so. Yeah. And so, how you been since then?
Good, man. Doing well. Yeah, I can't complain. Staying busy, working, doing some comedy stuff, making people laugh, which has been fun.
Very nice.
Um, Excited that New York is going to be opening up soon. That's the big thing.
Yeah, that's what I hear. I was on the phone a few hours ago with a booker from New York, from Broadway. He was kind of giving me the lowdown on how that whole thing is gonna happen. You're out of Boston though, right?
I'm in Boston. I'm from Boston,
Mm-hmm.
and I've been spending the past few months in Boston. But I live in New York generally. So
Okay. Okay. All right. And you how long have you been doing comedy again?
not too long. I'm still a young babe. About a year and a half, a little over a year and a half now. So
Really? That's
mhm.
interesting. You have the way you carry yourself comedically. You have you have like a veteran's vibe to you sometimes. I mean, it's
Really.
if my nose was better, maybe I could tell the difference. But whenever you talk or whenever you perform, I'm like, this is someone who's 3-4 years in, which is not veteran, but is more
Right.
than what you got right now.
Well, I'm glad my smoke and mirrors is working.
Well, you know what? It could just be that you're from the East Coast, and I just think of
Maybe
those
that's
people as everybody at the East Coast is a comedian to me. You guys all have this very like kind of dodgy, nervous way of talking that I think is probably just what comics do anyways.
right.
So
Where are you
yeah,
from?
I'm from Houston.
Oh, nice,
Yeah, I'm from
nice.
Houston.
I have a nice. And you live? You're in where now?
I'm in Pittsburgh. I'm in Pittsburgh.
That's right. Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was I gonna say? Well, actually, you sounded like you were about to say something too, or maybe you weren't. I don't know. Gosh, my interviewing skills are nothing up to snuff to Barbara Walters, but I'm doing my best.
You're doing okay. You're doing great.
I'm doing all right. All right, okay,
Do you
good.
like? Do you like doing? How's the comedy in Pittsburgh? How is it? Is it
It's actually surprisingly good. It's surprisingly supportive and close knit, especially
really?
because, well, it's not a very big city. There's only like 370,000 people in like the greater Pittsburgh area. So everybody knows each other, everybody talks to each other, and everybody's trying to help each other out. So me being a younger comedian, it definitely doesn't feel like I'm like just at the bottom of this absolute. I mean, I am at the bottom of a mountain, but it's not like there's not a trail and guides, that kind of thing.
Right. Right.
You been to Pittsburgh before?
Only once. I went to the Andy Warhol Museum and a Pittsburgh Pirates game. That's about it.
And did we win?
We did not win.
Yeah, that's no surprise.
It's par for the course.
Yeah, who gives a shit? Yeah, I'm saying. Oh God, yeah. It's repping the black and yellow here is something of a mixed bag, because if you're talking about football, you're good, but if you're talking about the Penguins or the Pirates, you're just an idiot.
Yeah, right.
It's kind of no point.
I enjoyed my time. It was fun. It's a cool city.
Yes, yeah. It's very quirky. It's a very quirky city, and that I think bleeds into the comedy a lot. You have these sort of beatnik comedians who are doing all sorts of alt stuff, and then we've got like a amateur wrestling ring.
What?
Yeah, we've got like local amateur wrestlers who do like fundraisers and these performances. It's actually kind of crazy. Neighborhood
like wrestling or like WWE wrestling.
WWE wrestling. So like it's a whole like cult of personality kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah, and that's part of it. We have a really big punk scene, so a lot of punk music.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is that stuff is not separate from the comedy. So like everything kind of like weaves together in this sort of cultural, I guess, like tapestry, whatever you want to call it.
Interesting.
But enough about me in Pittsburgh. So you're in Boston right now. What's the scene like there? Tell me a little bit about that.
Online. Scene is online.
Yes. The internet scene, the digital one.
Yes, the scene is online. But honestly, dude, I don't know about you, but I feel like it's been great because, first of all, it's connected me with so many people that I would never have even connected with otherwise.
Word.
Which has been great, and just broadening my comedy family, and afforded me opportunities that I would have had. So that's been great.
Mm-hmm.
And the other cool thing about it is that I really enjoy doing virtual mics because it's just so much more convenient. Virtual shows are rough and tough, but for mics, it's so much easier.
It's fun. Yeah, it's actually funny that you say that. I think it's the same for me. I think virtual shows is a bit of a slog fest. It can be fun. Like if you come at it like you're actually at a show, I usually feel like a psycho, but I put on like, I don't put on deodorant, but like I'll wash my face and I'll put on like, maybe a nice shirt or something, just kind of like dress up, and it kind of puts my brain in the mindset. And it kind of makes it less, I'm just sitting on my computer.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah. But I agree with you about the mic stuff. I mean, so this is a question that's been going around a lot, is once the pandemic is, over might be a really strong word because we're going to be feeling this stuff for a while, but once things hit to like 70% normal, do you think that we're going to still have Zoom mics? Where do you think that stuff is going to fit in the comedy landscape?
I would imagine that mics will stick around because I think a lot of people feel similarly to us. They think that, mics can be brutal anyway. So why not just do it from the comfort of your own home? I feel like, mics there will be both live and virtual, but I think the virtual shows will go. I don't think anyone will do the shows.
Yeah. And I'm inclined to agree. Yeah. Well, and it's also like, do you find that, do you find that you can get the same benefits to your writing from virtual mics as you might be able to get from open mics in person?
Interesting. Probably, I don't know. Probably not as much in terms of like writing like on my feet.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Maybe let's not. No, I don't think so, because I think a part of it is feeling the vibe of the live audience, and it's a little harder to to feel
Get
that through the camera. But then again, I also don't do a ton of writing on my feet. I generally, write and then take it and perform it and then workshop it again on my own. And that's kind of how I work. So, but I think it's probably a little different. Probably not as good, but it's fine. At least I don't notice too big a difference. So
That's interesting. I mean, yeah, I guess I kind of feel like if you don't write on your feet too much, I think open mics over Zoom can actually be useful in the sense that, like just yesterday, I mean, I hit about like 4 mics, and just kind of being able to, just the act of being able to do the same bit 4 times in a row really helped me like figure out, okay, where's the fat, where are the chinks in the armor, and pick that out, put that in. And so it's interesting, I think, that like crowd work, that sort of thing, crowd work, writing on stage. I mean, the best I can do is maybe riff while I'm on Zoom. Right. That's the best I can do, is I can riff. If I'm physically on stage, then I can start, thinking a little bit more like extra dimensions or whatever. But the best I can do when I'm on Zoom is just kind of like add a quick little witty tag.
Yeah. Is that how you write generally? You write on your feet, or do you? There was
a time where that was all I did. And that was like, but that was intentional. That was like, okay, these few months, that's all I'm going to do, is I'm just going to take these bits, I'm going to work them out on stage and do everything on stage. But that was intentional. These days, it's moving a little bit more in the direction of, I'm going to think about this as like a piece of writing, and then I'm going to perform it and then get the feedback, and perform it and get the feedback. Right. So these days, it's a little bit more formal, a little bit cleaner. Mm-hmm. But I still, if I need to, I mean, I can still pull kind of a little piece of paper out of a hat and be like, okay, let me play with that for about 15 minutes.
Yeah.
What about yourself? I mean, what does writing look like for you?
It's more of the latter than what you said. It's I write it, and I try and write it as best I can, and try and come up with the best jokes, and then I'll perform it and see if it works at all. Mm-hmm. And if it doesn't work, then I'll go and I'll write it again, and then perform it again. And that's kind of how I do it. I'm trying to get better at doing bigger bits, which is what I've been working on now. So that has been actually more challenging working that way, because there's just more to remember, and they're all new, and they're always getting revamped and
Yeah.
So it's like, I never know if it's because if the bit isn't working because I don't know it well enough and I'm just not comfortable with it enough, or if it's actually not funny. You know what I mean? So that's always a challenge, but.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I think, well, it's always really fascinating to hear how people go through it, because I think it's the case that, everybody sometimes thinks of their way as like the way, even though it's not necessarily the only way to approach comedy. Like there's some people who truly think that if they write anything down, they're going to kill everything. They're going to lose all of the flow, the delivery, the soul, the passion, whatever. Like if the moment they commit anything to, the soulless letters, something about that keyboard is just going to suck all the energy out of it. And I don't know. I feel like those people need to get over themselves a little bit in a sense. It's like, all right, dude. Okay. You got your voice, sure. But it's not so unique that, it's like the tiniest little edit is going to, pop it.
Yeah. Right. I mean, to me, it's actually just the same process, just in like reverse order. That's how I kind of feel like it looks like. Cause I'll do the same thing that they're doing, but I do all of that at the end. So like if I'm actually performing, right, and like there's like a huge house, when I go up there, I say, all right, I'm just going to perform it. And if I say it weird or it comes out strange, or, that's it. I'm just going to let it be free at that point. And, and I'm not going to worry about oh, the wasn't in the correct spot. You know, like,
Oh,
fuck that.
yeah,
Like,
well,
yeah.
I mean, well, and I don't think there's anybody, and it's also, you can go the other way too, right? Like there's people who are like, I need every single written thing, I need everything written
Oh,
down.
like Seinfeld and stuff. Like,
Yeah, like Seinfeld. And it's like, okay, I see what you're saying. Like the music needs to be written right and everything needs to be precise. And I'll never begrudge anybody that. But it's sort of a hill that you have to, in my opinion, it's sort of a hill you have to die on, because if you sit and you write every single syllable out painstakingly and you get this perfect flow,
yeah,
then it's your job to be like, okay, I'm committing this all to memory. Like this is just going to be as easy as breathing. But if I'm 90% short of that or 80% short of that, I'm fucked. Because then these inconsistencies start to show up, and like you're like, wait, hold on, did I skip that paragraph beginning and that was indented there? And like, okay, wait, but that has 3 syllables. I meant to have 2 there. Blah, 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 blah. And then you start getting in your head. The audience, can feel it. And that's happened to me before. When I first got into comedy, and I do everything longhand, or I used to do everything longhand. I'm kind of
really.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I got my journal right here, and it's all it's like 100 and something pages. Yeah, all just.
I tried to do that. When I first started, I tried to do that, and that overwhelmed me. That overwhelmed me so bad.
Yeah. I mean, it can. When I got different colors and all these different systems, and it's just like, yeah. Sometimes I get overwhelmed. Sometimes it overwhelms me. It's not always peaches and cream. But when I first started out, I would write everything out painstakingly. And if I memorized it, it would come out, well, it would come out okay, but it was still kind of some robotic. But if I didn't commit it 105%, you need that 5% wiggle room. If I didn't commit it that well to memory, it would come out and I would start freaking out about the accuracy of it. And now I feel like I'm studying for a test that I wrote myself, and it's like, oh, Jesus.
Right.
So, I mean, it depends on who you are.
Weird thing. It's this weird. There's no real right answer. It's just all different paths to the same place.
Exactly. Well, I was thinking just today, or I was talking to somebody today about this, and I'm interested to see what you think about this. But comedy is an art form that exists in the moment. And so it's not about how much you've written, unless of course you're like writing for a newspaper or a magazine, but it's not about how much you've written. It's about how much time you have. Our language is in time. Where's my type 3? Do I have a type 5? Do I have a type 10? Do I have 15 minutes? Can I do 30? Can I do 20? And so when I think of my productivity, and I think about, what did I accomplish in this week, I will often think about it not in number of jokes or number of bits, but in, well, I've got realistically 90 seconds more of good material, of stuff that could work or does work on stage. And so it's interesting because like that means that it actually doesn't matter how much you write at all, because the audience doesn't see it, nor do they care. It's all about how much time can you do in that moment. And so I'm curious what you have to think about, comedy being this like time-based sort of thing.
That's interesting. I had never really thought of it that way. Yeah, it's your currency essentially is
currency. Yeah.
Is how much time can you fill on stage? How much time can you fill with yourself? That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, the only thing is that you have to overwrite in order to get
anything, any reasonable.
You have to puke out stuff.
Yeah.
That will never see the light of day.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And yeah. So
well, then it either never sees the light of day or it dries up in the sunlight, and then like 5 months later you look at it and you're like, oh, I can use that. That's actually I'm making a smoothie that can go in right now. That this chunk of banana I upchucked. That's kind of a gross analogy, but I can use those strawberries. I didn't know that.
Absolutely. Or it's like, oh, I thought that was I thought those were strawberries, but they're not strawberries at all. It's a pomegranate. It's totally different.
No kidding. I'm writing my type 5 on pomegranates.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have to overwrite and stuff, but I think that's a good way of thinking about it. Actually, how much time. It's all about how much time and not about the actual number of jokes.
Yeah.
Because if it doesn't really matter. It's like no one's gonna be like, hey, can I see your set of 200 jokes that you have or whatever.
Yeah.
It's going to be 10 minutes or 15 minutes, whatever,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and so a question I have, and you said the word overwrite, and I never really thought about that phrasing, but it is sort of something I've thought about, which is there was a point in my career. I don't know why I'm doing this. This is, this is the beginning of my career. It's not like, sorry, I have a tendency to be like, what's the word? Self-deprecating, which I got to get out of.
I feel like a lot of comics have that tendency.
That's true. That is maybe that's sort of a prerequisite, but
I think you have to have some of that,
That's very true. You can't be too cocky.
No.
But I remember at one point, a couple of months ago, when it really occurred to me just how much you have to write just to get something at the end of it that might not even be that good. It was this bit I was working on about Hot Topic. You know that story, Hot Topic?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I spent easily 8 months working through this. I mean, just draft after draft after draft after draft after draft. And finally, I got 2 one-liners out of it. Two one-liners from like 6 drafts, each of them maybe 4 pages.
Yeah.
And that was the only shit
like
that really worked. Yeah.
I feel like you and I are in similar places, maybe. And I feel like that's just experience. I feel like,
True.
I feel like, I don't feel like that ever goes away fully, probably, if that's my hunch. But I think the person who's been doing it for 10 years probably will have enough experience to like look at a bit and say, all right, what's going on? Like how much it really is here, and then they can probably cut ties with it after draft 4 or 5,
That's a good point. So I guess there's like that phrase, you have to kill your darlings. And do you find yourself doing that? Do you find yourself just like tossing the birds over the ledge?
That's hard because I feel like once I start, I have a bad tendency of once I start a bit, I gotta make this work somehow. Yep. I gotta figure this out. There's something. No, I gotta make, and I'm like, when really I should just let it go.
Dude, the toothbrush salesman is not happening, man. Just put it up. Put it in the. No, man. But what's cool about it is what it says about the world around us. It's like a political thing. Yeah. It's like, okay, all right.
I don't know if you find this, but I feel it's incredible how much I have to write just to come up with my idea for the bit, or like I have to write to generate what I want to talk about. That's kind of
you have to write in a way.
I have to like write. Yeah, exactly. I have to like write to write, or I have to write to figure out what my opinion is on something.
Yes, I like that. The I have to write to find my opinion about it, because you think about opinions are connected with emotion. So it's like, of course I should know how I feel about lamps, or of course I should know what I feel about, Labrador retrievers. It's like, you don't really know. You don't really know what you because you don't consciously think about that, because your head would explode. If every time you looked around the world, you had every single thought you had about that shit, your eyes would pop out. And so you're absolutely right. You need to spend time extracting it and being like, actually, you know what? Fuck Labrador retrievers. You know what? Actually, fuck lamps. Like here's why. Because when I was 13, I like that. You do have to write to even find out what the hell you're talking about, or what you want to even talk about, what's worth talking about. That's a very good point. It's a very good point.
Do you find that your best stuff comes from like strong opinions, and that's how it kind of starts for you?
The best stuff that I have does tend to come from strong opinions. I think whenever I'm writing, I think I try to go for things that I find really, really cool, or really, really not upsetting, but just like really befuddling, up to the point where it is almost a little upsetting. Like I've got a bit about stationary bikes, and it's just me ranting about, how I don't understand why they exist. I don't know what they're doing. Why is it so expensive to go to spin class? They don't even need to change the wheels. Like, what's going on here? um and also, well, but you also have to, I mean, and maybe you can relate to this. It's not like I'm sitting at home thinking, God, I fucking hate stationary bikes. I just can't,
Right.
like there is this hamming up that needs to happen with
Sure.
any bit, where, it is, of course, at the end of the day, it's a performance.
Right.
Anything that got me that angry in real life, ironically, I would make it a little harder to write about. Um,
Mm,
you know what I
right.
mean?
Yeah. 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 For sure. For
So
sure.
that to me is, but I get a lot of juice from stuff that I think is really cool. Like music that I
Hmm.
like, comic books that I like, movies that I like. I mean, I'll still ridicule them and I'll still find absurdities, but like, there's always this nucleus of, oh, it's so groovy. That's so cool. You know.
Yeah.
What about yourself?
No, I totally agree. I totally agree. I think I'm still learning for myself what really or how really to get the meatiest stuff out of like what I want to say. But I think that it tends to be like stronger opinion stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Stuff that like makes me like emotional or like
Mm-hmm.
um that isn't there's a difference between like what I think like actually triggers me and then like what actually triggers me, like if that makes sense. Like
Mm-hmm.
if like I can think I have a strong opinion about something, but then I write and then I realize, oh, I don't really actually give a shit about this thing that
Yeah.
I'm talking about. And so I have to like actually explore like what my emotions are talking about. And that's kind of what.
Well, and it's interesting. I think, the strongest bits, just in terms of language, are the ones that use a lot of feeling words.
Mm,
I hate, I like, I love, I can't get enough of,
right.
anything. Yeah, and just like, just from a linguistic standpoint, and I think those even trump I think. Like, somehow, the whenever you switch from brain to the emotional kind of base, people tend to resonate with that, because even
Yeah,
if they didn't necessarily hear every single word of what you're saying, if you engage them emotionally, it does bring them into that mindset a little bit easier. Like, I struggled at the beginning of my sort of comedy thing, with talking about really niche music, or like comic books or superheroes or video games, and just not having stuff hit, because it was like I would just talk about Nightcrawler for 20 minutes and they'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about, dude? Like, what?
right, right.
But when I took a step back and I was like, okay, but here's like why I'm talking about Nightcrawler. Here's what about that hurts me or makes me feel powerful or makes me feel great or makes me feel terrible. And then I think people fill in the gaps for you. They're like, oh, well, naturally, because I feel that same way about laundry detergent. Or like, oh, well,
Yeah,
naturally, that's how my grandma makes me feel. My grandma is my Nightcrawler, you
yeah,
know? And so realizing that everybody had their Spider-Man, everybody had their Avengers, everybody had their Batman, and I just happened to call mine Batman, Avengers, and Spider-Man, was sort of a, and
yeah, yeah,
engaging
yeah.
that emotionally. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So,
And that's the whole goal is to get to the core of whatever it is we're talking about, which is the universal thing.
mhm.
You know, so that's great. That's awesome.
So then, who do you think? Well, I guess there's a couple of ways I can ask this, so maybe I'll ask it in parts. But growing up, what was your kind of exposure to comedy? Was, like, what was your first sort of introduction to the world of making people laugh? Either you making people laugh or on television, whatever.
Hmm. Making people laugh. I think that for me that was my like just being fun and goofy and weird and like spontaneous and funny. That was my whole like that was my currency in like high school and and that's how I like made friends essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was like how I like got people to like me. Um and that was like really my first experience with that. And then I was an actor for many years. I was an actor for like 7 years. I was acting when I was a kid too. So that's what I wanted to do.
Oh
So
wow.
I didn't like do any comedy at all. I went to acting school. I was an actor forever. And then my girlfriend at the time convinced me to start doing improv.
Mm.
I kind of fell in love with improv and doing
Where did you
comedy.
get your start in improv? In Boston?
No, UCB.
UCB. Okay, cool. Cool.
UCB. I did a little improv in college, and that was fun too, but it wasn't anything serious. And so I did improv for a couple of years at UCB, and then I was like, improv is great, but I don't know how much. I don't really know what it's going to do for me career wise, other than get me a commercial agent or something. So
Yeah.
I was like, like there's only one Who's Line, and there's like four guys on that show. So
Yeah. Yeah. That's
so I
very
was like, I'll
true.
do stand up. I'll try stand up, and I liked it, and I've been having fun ever since. So that's kind of how I
Wow.
got.
All right. So that's, I mean, that's kind of how you got into it from like a here's A to B to C to D. But who would you say are some of your idols in the sort of comedy community? And this can be stand-ups. These can be somebody actually, I asked someone this a while ago and they said like Madonna.
Madonna.
Yeah, they were like, yeah, Madonna is like a performer who, whenever I see her, she inspires my comedy. I'm like, wow, Madonna, that's interesting.
Wow.
I don't. I can't. This was some mic many moons ago, sometime, but someone did tell me Madonna at some point. So what I'm saying is you can say Madonna, and I will not. It will not have been the first time I've heard it.
I feel like I feel like there's so many, to be honest with you, and for lots of different reasons. When I was a kid, I was a big Mitch Hedberg fan.
Oh,
I really liked Mitch Hedberg. I was a big Mitch Hedberg guy. I remember when I first heard one of his specials, we were smoking in the car, and I never heard anything like that. It was the funniest. I was dying. I mean, it was so strange and so off the wall and so out of left field, and I never heard comedy like that. So that was a big. It was so unique, and I still have yet to. I don't think I've ever quite heard comedy since then. Like, I mean, no one's like Mitch.
Oh no.
No, you can't be. You can't be. Another big one for me growing up was Eddie Murphy. Loved him, and Adam Sandler. Adam Sandler. I grew up in the Adam Sandler heyday. Will Ferrell. Anchorman was like my
swan song.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, yeah, and then since I've gotten into stand up, I've learned more and more stand up that I didn't even know, like Mark Normand and Sam Morril. Those guys, I love those guys. Rita Rudner randomly.
Rita Rudner. She doesn't ring a bell. Rita Rudner. I'll put her down.
She's old.
Rita Rudner, old. Got it. I'll be sure to tell her that when I see her. You're old, Rita.
Old
as hell.
What about you? What are your big
Who are my big guys?
Yeah.
Well, let's see. When I was an itty bitty baby boy, it was the Chappelle Show.
Of course. Yeah.
That was huge. Chappelle Show, South Park, Family Guy. Those are sort of my introductions to like, anything witty, anything written well. Let's see. I read a lot as a kid. I remember, did you ever read the books, A Series of Unfortunate Events?
Sure.
Yeah, I remember. I mean, that's not, I'm kind of walking you through like when I was younger, and then kind of bring you to more contemporary stuff. But I remember reading that and being like, this is genius. This is the funniest shit I've ever read in my life.
I loved it. I thought it was so clever. I thought it was great the way he did the scrambled messages and the torn paper. I loved it.
Oh, they were such a pleasure to read. And those and Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. If we're gonna still talk about books, those are, I mean, gosh, just even listening to the audiobook the other day, I'm just like, this is fucking brilliant. I would kill to be this smart. So that was when I was very little. But then when I first started getting into stand-up, was right around the time that I bought or I got a iPhone because I had Pandora, and so I had to put on just comedy station. I put on the comedy station, and as you learn more comedians, you put on like the Patton Oswalt station, or you put on
Sure.
the Brian Posehn station, or Mulaney or CK. And so those are kind of the people that I grew up with in terms of stand up. And then as time went by, I think probably the first comic that really showed me that this was also something that I wanted to do, or something that I even could do, was, I think, Patton Oswalt. I think Patton kind of showed me like, hey, there's a niche for people to talk about like X-Men and like hyper specific details, and use these weird contrived analogies. Like there's like a space for that, and you can do that. You can go up and do that. And I was like, thank God, because that's all I can do. George Carlin. Yeah, George Carlin too. He was and it's interesting because I grew up with late George Carlin. So I think a lot of people, they grow up with like Hippy Dippy Weatherman, or with like 7 Words You Can't Say on Television, or Class Clown. But I grew up with like, you're all fucking diseased, it's all bullshit, it's all bad for you.
That's the Carlin I know, because I don't actually. Carlin is like a bit of a hole. I'm not super familiar with his material, but the stuff that I do know is like all that old stuff. I mean, all the new stuff, all the more recent stuff.
Well, when he was older, yeah,
when he was older.
I mean, and the thing is what kills me too is like you watch his old stuff, and people only see his old stuff and they think, wow, here's just this angry dude ranting at the world, wants to burn it all down. And it's true. First of all, he's wanted to do that his whole life. He just didn't feel, it wasn't until it was like 80 that he was like, okay, let me just remove all pretense. But then also, he listened to his earlier stuff, and it's just fucking brilliant. I mean, he talks about time and death and sickness and hoarding, and just, I mean, the guy is like a fucking machine. And that to me is, so actually maybe a question I have now is, because this makes me think about it, who's a comic that you would want to emulate? So there's comics that we like and that kind of show us comedy, but then who's someone that you're like, I like that style. I like the risks that they take and how they take them, and who is that for you?
Interesting. Wow. I hadn't really thought of that, but I'll come up with something real fast. Who would I want to emulate? Whose style and risk taking do I like? Do I really enjoy? I would say, I'm actually going to be on a show with him in a few hours.
It's Ivan Vasquez. I'm sorry. I actually missed what you said because I'm such an arrogant prick.
Usama. I don't know him very well. I don't think I know him. I don't think we've ever actually even officially met, but I really like his style.
English dude?
No, no, he's Indian.
Or no, sorry. Does he live in England?
No.
Okay. Okay. I'm thinking of a totally different dude. What do you like about this Usama guy? What does he have that I don't got, Nick?
He's so funny. He's great. He's so casual and confident and charismatic on stage. I really enjoy comedy. And then other people. Oh, I really like Tom Segura, but I don't think I could ever do what he does, to be honest with you.
A lot of people try.
A lot of people try, and I have no idea. I don't think I could ever do what he does. I don't think I have the deadpan face for it.
Yeah.
Same with Nate Bargatze. I wish I could do what Nate does.
Well, Nate has that weird baby face dad look. You know what I mean? Like he's kind of got like, we're thinking of the same person, right? Like he's kind of got like round eyes and sort of that like golly gee look, but he also looks like he pays taxes. It's I don't know. It's hard for me to watch him because he looks just like my little brother, and it's like, what are you talking about, Zabin? What do you know about raising kids? It's a weird. That's a totally personal flourish, but that was just like every time I watch
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
I'm like, it takes me out of it. I'm like, what? It's I can't watch it. It's like a mind fuck. Um, I just to go on my like a 10-minute blurb. I really mean it when I say everybody tries to do Tom Segura. I mean, God, I mean, just the last few mics that I've been to, it's just been like 10 Toms, and it's just like, dude, we all know what you're watching. We all know what you're doing. Like, just give it a break. Um, I don't know. Whoever is the biggest comic at the time, obviously he's going to get emulated the most or get emulated in some way. And Segura is towards the top. So
You see a lot of Bill Burrs too.
oh, you see a lot of Bill Burrs. You see a lot of people trying to be Bill Hicks.
Yes.
You see a lot of Normans. See a lot of
ton of
a
Normans.
million. There's just a sea of Normans. It's like a fucking French invasion. I mean, it's just all Normans. Oh
Yes.
God. Well, it's because it's a very he's in a sense he's the new Seinfeld in the sense that his voice is very stand-up comedian.
Yes.
It's very, very stand-up comedian. And so people listen to that and they're like, okay, that's relatively easy to do. And it's everything you say sounds like you're telling a joke, even if your writing sucks. And so with Normand, you can get away with a lot. If you just, if you make everything like this, it's like, oh, I'm super surprised by everything. Wow, yeah.
Right.
Even though I haven't written a fucking joke in 20 minutes,
Whoa, hi. Hey, yeah.
Whoa, yeah. It's okay. All right. I hear what you're saying. It's,
I also see a lot of, in the New York scene, I see a lot of young kids trying to be like, Andrew Schultz.
Andrew Schultz. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of like, people who don't have the skills and or the likability to say the things that Andrew Schultz says on stage.
Yep. Absolutely.
I'm like, yo, like, just like try like doing a joke about like toast first. All right.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. And it's probably going to be hilarious. Toast is a very funny subject. All right. You can probably write 3 jokes right now about toast that are great. Okay. Instead of like 5 abortion jokes that are all just like, ooh.
Calm down, dude.
Yeah. And also don't talk about toast and abortions. Don't try to mix and match. Don't, stay in one lane. Oh my gosh. I'm happy that, and I'll ask you about this in a second, but I'm happy that I have mentors that I can kind of go to, that I've shown my set to, that have been able to point out where I'm going into like needlessly edgy territory and where I can, I can kind of pull it back a little bit. Because sometimes you just do. Sometimes you go into something that's way too edgy for like no reason. You don't really know what you're doing with it. And it takes someone else to kind of come in and be like, you don't have to talk about this, or you don't need to talk about it this way.
Right.
So I'm curious, do you have any mentors? How have they helped you? What's sort of been that relationship like?
I think I have some, I don't know if I would call them mentors, but I would say they are people who have given me advice, stand-ups, who are like teachers and things, and who are, working professionals themselves, and who have like pointed me in like the right direction, or like given me encouragement. Mm-hmm. But I wouldn't call them like, I don't feel like we're mentors. I don't feel like we're that close, but definitely I think, people like you said, hey, do this here, maybe try this, maybe think of it this way. I also rely on like friends, some comics like that I've met through a lot actually with quarantine, to like, hey, like, you're like, I don't think you are aware that you're coming off this way, but you're coming off this way, maybe change that. And I'm like, oh, great, thank you so much.
So we need people who can do that for us. That's a super, super, super valuable, I guess, quality in a person, to be able to kind of call us out a little bit. I think one thing that's interesting about comedy is kind of coming to grips with how things work. And one thing that really has been occurring to me more and more is the fact that you're going to get a lot from other people. you know, you're going to get a lot of punchlines, you're getting a lot of tags, you're getting a lot of, maybe not premises, but just, you know, directions from other people. And I mean, obviously there's people who can just sit in a dark room and just produce everything. Well, not even, but then that's not even true. Because we've all been in that dark room and we've come out and we've realized, oh yeah, well, the reason that room was dark is so you can't see how shit that you've been doing, you
Right.
know. So it's interesting to see kind of like that realization of, wow, you really do owe yourself a lot to these, you know, these people helping you out in
Yeah.
this journey.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. But then you also have to be judicious too, because like
Good point.
they have to like, because at the end of the day, it's your stuff. So
Yes.
like, you know, it's not even beyond the like, oh, that idea that they just said may not be funny or may not be good or may not be applicable. Like they can give you like gold, but if it's not something that you want to talk about or doesn't fit with your voice or your aesthetic, then you need to be aware of that as well. But
Exactly.
it's a double-edged sword because you have to be aware of like have to be open-minded and you can't be like defensive or ego about it, you know.
Yeah, and you're right. I think judicious is the perfect word for it. You know, how do you delineate? And you say, well, what if this person gives you gold? Well, like, what if the joke is about copper? Then like this isn't useful to you. Like it's just not. And then I've had that. I've had people give me very technically correct comedy input where it's like,
Mm.
okay, this makes sense on paper, and these are our beats that should be hit, and it makes sense, but stylistically it doesn't work, creatively it doesn't work. There's an aside, or there's a refrain, or there's something happening in my stuff that's not being addressed by this, and so this would come out of nowhere.
Right.
And so I mean, I guess I've seen you perform, although it has been a while and I'm not an expert. um, but how would you, you know, would you describe your comedy as something that feels like, when people listen to it, very, 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 very off the wall, idiosyncratic? Or do you think it's like, okay, I mean, I'm talking about my life and my things, but from like a style standpoint, from like a structure standpoint, I'm not, you know, I'm not trying to like break the envelope or anything.
Yeah, I don't think I'm trying to like break the envelope or reinvent the wheel in any way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I feel like from where I am, I feel like I'm still really at the very beginning stages, like figuring out who it is I really want to be on stage, and like that's a whole thing that I mean, comics spend years figuring that out. So,
That's true.
um,
That's true.
but and some people have like really easy things to immediately plug into. I don't feel like I have that as much. So I feel like I'm still finding what it is that my thing, like my immediate like thing on stage is.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think I'm like really reinventing the wheel. I feel like I had one older comic. I did my type 5 for him, and he said that I feel watching me feels like you never know like when I'm gonna come. You know the punchline is coming, but you never quite know when it's gonna happen. It feels a little like kind of like controlled chaos is kind of how he put it. So I'm
Mm.
sure he's probably it's just there probably is something there to that.
That's interesting. It kind of reminds me of like that Jackie Chan drunken fist sort of style, where, you know, he's
Yeah,
like bobbing
exactly.
and weaving, and then, you know, and then he kind of moves away again. Yeah,
Or
that's
like,
interesting.
did you ever is it Tekken? Is Tekken the what game is Eddie the breakdancer? I don't know.
Oh, sounds like from Street Fighter.
Or maybe it's Street Fighter. Yeah, he's like all over the place, and he's like yeah, very much that drunken style.
Yeah, yeah, you know, you dance all over people. That's interesting. I think.
I don't. I think that's putting it way too gracefully. I don't think I have that much skill, but yeah, that's kind of the vibe.
Fair enough. Fair enough. And it's interesting. I mean, so how do you think you've changed since you first started? I mean, first started, really.
Oh, I'm way better than I used to.
That's the best answer. Yeah.
I definitely think but I mean, that's not really, I mean, I started pretty low. I was, um, like I look back at some of my old stuff. I maybe you feel the same way. I'm like, what the hell was I talking about? Like, and
Oh
I
my
thought,
God.
and I can point to like punchlines that I thought were punchlines at that point, and I was like, this is insane.
This is
And
a sentence.
yeah, this is a statement. I made a statement of fact, is what I did.
Yeah.
So, and I'm sure a year from now, I will look back on all my stuff that I'm working on now and be like, this is all garbage.
Isn't that scary? Isn't that kind of a scare? Because you're so much more confident in it now because you are better. You're better. So it's like, well, I should be more confident in it, but I know, give it 10 months, not even a year, give it 10 months. God, that kills me. I mean, even stuff I wrote like a month ago, I'm just like,
Oh,
what?
I know.
I'm like, I'm flummoxed. I'm bamboozled.
I know.
I confuse myself. God damn. So
I've been having awful writer's block lately too. So that's
what do you think that's about? Or actually, well, maybe it's a better question is, what do you do about that?
I have no idea. I haven't figured that one out yet. I just try and grit my teeth and barrel through it, I guess. It's
Same.
really the answer right
100%
now. I don't know if that's the most effective thing. But I actually think I'm coming out of it. But for like really over the course of this winter, I've been trying to write new material, and I really haven't gotten to anywhere with it. And I think that's been a really good learning experience. But I think I'm coming out of it, which has been good. But
I think somebody said at one point, if you do experience writer's block, what you should do is you should reach back and find stuff that you are unsure about, or even stuff that you are sure about, and just work on that. It's like if you're not finding anything new, just take what you already have and find new things in it and punch it up and punch it up and punch it up. And then kind of like how we talked about where when you write, you generate your opinions about stuff. It's the same thing with your bits, is that when you write on top of your bits, you generate new emotions and new thought patterns from that stuff. At least that's what happens, I think, sometimes with me is, I'll write on top of something and I'm like, wait, hold on. There's obviously, I wanted to say this earlier. I think another thing with like a veteran comic working on, 8 or 9 drafts of something and not getting anywhere or whatever, is also you just know which directions to go. Like if I give you 3 things, pineapple, donkey, and carrot, well, then it's super obvious to you. Well, why don't you talk about the donkey and the carrot? Or why don't you talk about the donkey and the pineapple? Because that's less obvious. Like that stuff points itself in its own direction.
Right.
But that takes time, and that takes a nose for comedy.
Right.
And so I think that's part of why I like going and seeing my old bits, is because, as my senses get better, I'm like, well, let me just see if there was anything there that didn't seem like anything or what I didn't think about initially, and see if I can make that one work.
I feel like, I feel like a lot of it is learning to really just trust yourself. I feel like a lot of times your initial impulse is correct or is right or will lead you in the right direction. But I think sometimes, at least for me, I second guess myself and I get wrapped up and then I get obsessive and perfectionist about it. But I feel like, and the whole process of like gaining all that experience is really just being able to trust my first impulse and like where to go.
Exactly. And I think, that's sort of, because you got into comedy for a reason, right?
Right.
You have an instinct. You have instincts, really. And so to say that, like, oh, I don't know what I'm talking about, it's like, well, then what are you doing? Like, you have to know something,
Right.
There's like, who are you kidding saying you don't know what the hell you're talking about? It's like, something. Give yourself some credit. Maybe I'm talking more to myself than I am to you. I'm a bad interviewer. I'm just having a conversation with myself. But
no, I definitely agree. I definitely think it's those things. So.
Yeah. Well, we're about out of time. I usually try to. I mean, sometimes these things go a lot longer, but I'm more strapped for time today than I was a couple of days ago. But check-ins at 8:45. The doors will open probably at 8:30. I usually start playing music or whatever. But yeah, I super excited to have you. Is there anything that you want to plug before we get out of here?
Just follow me on the socials, Nick Carter Comedy on Insta, and Nikki Stands Up on Twitter.
All right, cool. I will put those on the description for this video. And yeah, I'll see you tonight.
Great, man. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Peace.